Nigerian equities markets rebounded slightly on Tuesday as the all-share index was up by 7 basis points to close points, bringing the year-to-date performance still in the negative territory to about 2%. Still talking about the market, we saw about 17 advances on Tuesday as against 18 decliners. The volume dipped by about 6% to 196.7 million ordinary shares traded at a value of about 1.45 billion naira. Those are the numbers on your screen right now. Number 1,800. We saw the most traded stocks by volume. They were Cotville PLC, Wema Bank, as well as Zenith Bank and GTCO were all the most traded stocks. Analysts expect that sentiments will be mixed even as we go towards the end of the week as activities of profit takers continue to collide with that of bargain hunters. If we take you through other markets now, talking about market diary, we saw 157 billion naira OMO maturity repayment boosting market liquidity on Tuesday, causing interbank rates to fall. The OBB rates dipped to about 15.5%, while overnight rate closed at 15.75%. For the Treasury bills market, it maintained its quiet trend on Tuesday, while we saw activities concentrated on the long end of the curve. For the FGM bond market on Tuesday, it was a bit bullish with pockets of demand seen across maturities. The market is relatively predicted to stay bullish, while the FGN Eurobond market was relatively bearish on Tuesday. We saw sell-offs across a board. Average benchmark yields fell 4 basis points to about 6%. The Nigerian currency appreciated against the US dollar. At the I&E window, it is trading at 411 naira. That's what it closed yesterday at 411 naira. At the parallel market, the local currency finished at 521 naira, so it's depreciating at what we call the black market or the parallel market. All right, let's move over to other markets across the world, shall we? Quickly do that. Can I have those numbers on the screen? Talking about the United States, we saw the definitely the G7 countries preparing or meeting rather on Afghanistan. There was nothing being said about the August 31 withdrawal of the United States from Afghanistan, but you can see that the U.S. market, Dow Jones Industrial Average, S&P 500 were all in the red. Let's quickly move over to Europe and see how the markets traded earlier today. Green numbers for the open, but I would not say so much solid. They weren't so much solid at the open today. Asia, can we see what those markets did overnight? And let's quickly take a look at them. Then we'll move also into the commodities market. The Asian market, very quickly, guys, where we track the Nikkei 225 was down. Major markets also. Major markets were in the green, ASX 200 and Shanghai Composite. Let's quickly move over to commodities and see how Brent crude is trading. So most commodities are in the red except for palm oil, which we track here. All right, those are the numbers. Let's quickly take a break to connect with our guest, Charles Achodo, a security expert with NextYear SPD, and let's take a look at the economic cost of the increasing insecurity in the country. All right, welcome back. Charles Achodo, security expert at Next SPD, is joining me right now from Owerri, the Imo State capital. Mr. Achodo, good morning to you and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Nancy. How are you doing? Thanks.
I'm not good. I can, yes, I can be better because of what is happening. Isn't it worrisome that despite the increasing expenditure on counter-terrorism attacks, insecurity seems to be increasing? So as the money to fight it is increasing, insecurity is increasing. Let's also zero in on the NDA attacks yesterday in Kaduna State. What are your views about this? And I would also like you to bring in a bit of your experience into this. What kind of statements did it really send? Because at the beginning of the program, I said that I know the number of calls that I got yesterday. Nancy, is Nigeria still a safe place for investment? How can I also begin to, persuade people, okay, bring your money into the country is safe, but it's glaring for them to see.
Okay, definitely the conflict and the insurgency as we see it pose considerable threat to economic investment in the country. That is obvious. We don't need to flag that so much. It is very, very evident. However, the question is, what is the country doing? What is our strategy in addressing and combating this particular issue? Are you hearing me, Nancy?
Yes, I can hear you very much, Mr. Achodo.
Okay, fine. So that's the key issue. What is the nation's strategy in addressing and combating the insurgency? And we had a discussion sometime, and I said there are three elements to this process. It is the security side, it is the humanitarian side, it is the political side. What is happening in this country is that we have been consistently using a strategy that is highly flawed, not comprehensive enough, lacking in depth, lacking in substance. So what you have, it's the army fighting thinking they are fighting a conventional war when they know that it's not a conventional war. You have security side, the humanitarian side, driving a lot of humanitarian initiatives. That is fine, that is fair. But then who is politically managing and coordinating this process to explore options for negotiated resettlement of this insurgency issue? There is nobody. The president alone cannot do it. The president needs to appoint a czar for the Northeast who should be coordinating and driving the process of the national strategy for resolving the insurgency in the Northeast. What you have is the military, you have the security, but the political side is not there. We are wobbling on two legs on an issue that requires three legs. A tripod or a three-track approach is required. We're losing it. If you have, in countries where I've worked before, there is always the political side. And most of these insurgencies and rebel attacks are always ended in a negotiated framework. It is not militarily. And the military cannot do so. And we have stretched our military so far. We have stretched it so far. The military has three elements in it as an institution. It is its legitimacy as an organization that is by constitution provided to defend our territorial integrity. It is an institution that we shouldn't position in a way that its integrity is compromised. It is also an institution we cannot position in such a way that the credibility is compromised. So now we have an institution in which we don't know the extent of infiltration. What this country will have done long back ago is to hive out a specialized unit totally away from the military to begin to engage the insurgents, totally funded, separately funded, and reporting clearly to the president. The president has also to look at the option of appointing a czar who should be driving the political side for him.
Okay, Mr. Achodo, if you can hear
We are
me,
missing that.
if you can hear me, should I take this to mean that you're saying that Nigeria should negotiate with these terrorists that are causing this mayhem?
Definitely, Nancy, definitely, it can only be resolved through a negotiated agreement. Yes, it can. Because it is an asymmetrical warfare. The military is not prepared for this kind of engagement.
Okay.
They can do the best they can to contain it, but the more they do it, the more they're exposed to the possibility of being infiltrated. And it is such infiltration that leads and results to the kind of things we're seeing, like the recent attack on the NDA. Now, in other countries, what they do is they create a separate unit. You see, what has happened is that our security system never evolved to build institutions that can respond to the differential threats that were emerging. Now, since we didn't, what they should have done and ought to do is to create a specialized unit dedicated for this particular assignment and given the clear task to end this conflict within a certain period of time. And that isolates them from the military. The military can focus on any other thing, but these groups should be separate.
Okay.
Totally independent of the military, but reporting to the president. On the political side, the president needs to appoint a czar, a chief who should be driving this process for him. And that person can be handling the political side.
Okay.
The political side is what opens up the door for negotiation. The political side is what gives us insight as to those who are funding this group. Who is funding them? Where are they getting their hands
because I'm
from?
also wondering.
Who is financing them?
I was also
to
wondering that. I was also wondering that because for them to, to have this or to undergo this level of attacks, money must be involved, and we're not talking cheap money. Where are those monies coming from? In the era of BVN, our financial system is quite advanced, or even our payment system is quite advanced. One of the best, perhaps even in the world. You send money now, the person is getting it that same second. Why can't we, follow the money and perhaps get those people or their sponsors? That's one. Number two, I also want us to take our minds through why I'm discussing this today, because let's quickly give you this data. According to the Global Terrorism Index, Nigeria is the third country most impacted by terrorism in the world. We are number 3 in the world after countries like Afghanistan and Somalia. Nigeria also has the highest terrorism threat level in Africa. The cost of terrorism in the country has covered over 2.4% of our GDP. I did say earlier that defense spending has cost Nigeria over 8 trillion naira, at least in the last few years. Yet, we have not seen the last of it. Definitely, the number one, thing that we get out of this insecurity, or the number one consequence, is the loss of human lives and injuries that definitely cause major economic disruptions. I also want to, extend my condolences to all those that have lost loved ones, be it husbands, fathers, children, across Nigeria due to different insecurity threats, be it banditry, be it kidnapping and all of that. There was a guest of mine that spoke some months ago on the show and did tell me here on the program that ransom has cost Nigeria over 7 billion naira as at that time. 7 billion naira, people paying ransom. If we can take more data, let's quickly have that on the screen. I did say it earlier, over 8 trillion naira spent on defense in the last 7 years. Insecurity is the biggest threat to agricultural production, impacts access and availability. We know that our farmers are not able to go to the farms. In fact, when they go and harvest, they ask them to pay harvest allowance, and no one is speaking about that. Violent extremism affects the labor market as human lives are lost. The 30 people that have died, allegedly, at least the breaking news is still on AIT in Jos, are people's fathers, children, relatives and what have you, and perhaps even employees or employers. Security got 1.96 trillion naira in 2021 budget, an additional 722.5 billion naira supplementary budget earlier this year. I can go on and on, talking about the impact of insecurity in the country. Of course, we've seen higher counterterrorism expenditure to defense-related activities instead of into economic growing activities. There are also economic risk, change in human behavior. People will begin to even invest in certain ways. Yesterday, people called me and said, do you think that this place is still safe for investment? I've got to pull out my money or I'll take my money somewhere else. So you will see that difference in human behavior, and that will definitely affect our financial markets as well as our naira. Nigeria is the second largest spender on security in Africa after South Africa. In fact, I found out that Nigeria's military budget is greater than the combined armed forces in West Africa. So go figure. The lost value of economic activity in the informal sector from 2007 to 2015 was over 15% of our GDP. And we do know that the informal sector make up close to 50% of our economy. Governor Zulum of Borno State, I think was it yesterday or so, says that over 100,000 people have died so far due to insurgency. That 100,000 people, let me just give you a sense of it, can just be like, 0.10% of a certain country that has a population of like 2 million people. I think Namibia is a country of 2 million people. So when we say 100,000 people, don't just think there are 100,000 animals. Mr. Achodo, please give me a sense to all this data that we put out there. And we did it, so that our audience or our people can really understand, and, people can really understand what is really happening. The loss of human lives, loss of property
Nancy,
and money.
If you look at the data, you see, those data are pretty standard data that happen. You see them, they actually point to the issues happening in the country. Any country that has the level and scale of insecurity that we have in this country will be experiencing that, okay? So those data are very standard. The key is, if I ask you now, Nancy, what is the strategy? What is the national strategy for combating terrorism and insurgency in the Northeast? Do we have it? Have you seen the strategy? No, the government has no strategy. Let's be honest about it. I haven't seen any strategic document that says this is what we want to do. I haven't seen it. Everything is very ad hoc. So when you are engaged in this sort of thing, you have no strategy that is coherent. You have institutions that are weakened and weakened every time. It's not that you're not funding those institutions, like you've rightly seen those that show that our military are receiving substantial amount of money. Now you ask yourself question, where is the money going? Are they reaching the troops? Are the troops properly equipped? Do we have the right institutional configuration to respond to this strategy? This has to be clear. As far as I'm concerned, this country has no strategy for combating terrorism. What you have, or for combating the insurgency in the Northeast, what you have is an ad hoc response on the part of the military. You have the humanitarian strategy that is worked out and launched out. You don't see what the military calls their strategy. You don't see the political strategy. You don't see all these things brought together into one comprehensive framework for addressing and resolving the insurgency issues. We need that. And I keep on saying it. My approach is to find solution. It's not only to fly the data. It's not only to look at what the implications are. It's not only to look at the effect it is having. We all know it. We feel it without even the data. If they can hit NDA, they can hit any other place. Yes, and that's a message they have sent.
I was actually also coming to that where exactly is safe right now in Nigeria. These terrorists also got into the police headquarters some years ago.
I will not vouch that any place is safe. I cannot vouch for that, because the message they have sent is that regardless of how strategic you think any institution you have in this country is, we can reach it if we make the effort. And they made the effort, they got into NDA. They can attack anywhere. They can attack anywhere. So if that is the case, the question is, what is the nation's strategy? I keep on going back to this. What is the nation's strategy? And I've mentioned 3 elements of a strategy that has successfully been used in other countries. That strategy must have the humanitarian side. It must have a military component. It must have a political component. Now, we don't know what our military strategy is. Is it to contain? Is it to degrade? Is it to defeat? We don't know. Secondly, you have a humanitarian strategy that is out there, but you cannot be driving a humanitarian strategy and you are thinking of stabilization, you are thinking of reintegration, you are thinking of development in an environment that is so fluid. And, look, I was discussing with somebody, he says they are trying to create a pull factor. I said, first, to create a pull factor, you must be standing on something. What are you standing on to pull? You are standing on a fluid foundation. Again, let me go back to the point I made initially. The president cannot be the focal person driving this thing. It's too much for him. He needs to appoint a czar who will be reporting to him. On the political side, coordinating the process on the political side, he gets military briefing, he gets political briefing, he gets humanitarian briefing. He puts these two together and be able to have a clear picture of what is happening. But now he's only having one side of the information.
Okay.
And that information is highly asymmetrical. It doesn't tell him all the whole story. So every decision made on the basis of an incomplete information set, it's faulty.
Okay,
Secondly,
Mr. Achodo, let me just hold you.
Use the political side.
Can you hear me, Mr. Achodo?
To figure out how to do negotiations.
Can you just hear me? Let me just take this breaking news right now. Over 30 people killed, houses destroyed as gunmen attack Yalwan Zangam community in Jos. That is the breaking news that we are getting as African Independent Television. Definitely you're also seeing that scroll through the screen, and we're talking increasing insecurity in the country. Just as we end this session, you're talking about the president can't do it alone, but he's the CNC, isn't it? And he's a retired military general. One of the pillars which he campaigned on was that I'm going to fix the insecurity, and it seems to have worsened under him. Different meetings of security. I know the House of Reps had their meeting some time ago, a committee, or they put some things together. It seems that the more meetings that we have, no solution. And anytime there's an attack, the president comes up to say something. Okay, give a statement through his aides and all of that. But it seems that even those statements or what he says doesn't hold water. So what should we do as Nigerians now? What should we do as Nigerians if this situation is seemingly hopeless? Very quickly.
Well, it's not seemingly hopeless. The way I say it, I've seen worse things than this. What we have to avoid is for the Northeast to be our Swat Valley, the equivalent of the Swat Valley in Pakistan. We should avoid that. That's number one. Number two is what I have mentioned again. Time has come for a total rethink of our national strategy in combating the insurgency. Time has come for a comprehensive reevaluation of the strategy. And the funniest thing about it is that there are men and women in this country that have helped other countries to resolve this issue. Okay. There are people in the military that have retired. I know very well when I was working in Mozambique, in Angola, in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, who have driven this sort of thing, and it's been successful. Okay. There are men at the political level, and I don't want to mention some of them, even in the president, and that's what is amazing. His current chief of staff understands this very well. I'm sorry to say this. He understands this, that there must be a political person driving the political process. Okay. He drove the political negotiation in other countries, in Myanmar.
Okay, I think
Professor Gambari drove it.
I think we will leave it at that, Mr. Achodo.
And got to the point where they got. So there must be a way. There are people who have driven these sort of things before, and I keep on saying it. It will only end through a negotiated settlement. And it is through that political process, Nancy, that you're able to identify the source of funding, the people behind them, and whoever. And then you begin the process of engaging them to bring these people to the table.
Okay, Mr.
Once
Achodo,
you bring the political people to the table behind them, the funders and backers behind them, and you're able to negotiate, it will translate into an effective command and control. They will
Mr.
tell
Achodo, if you can hear me,
field people, stop
if you can hear
every insurgency. We are talking.
If you can,
and then from that discussion process, we will end up with a negotiated resettlement resolution to the crisis. And then we begin to do the issues of humanitarian reintegration, rehabilitation of the Northeast.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Achodo. Thank you very much. I think That's the much we can take because we have another package. Thank you very much, Mr. Achodo. I've been speaking with Charles Achodo, a security expert as next year SPD. Thank you. As part of efforts to boost job creation in the country, particularly among the youth, the Central Bank of Nigeria, in collaboration with the Bankers Committee, introduced the Creative Industry Financing Initiative to improve access to long-term, low-cost financing for entrepreneurs and investors in the Nigeria creative and information technology. On this week's edition of CBN Weekly, we will be bringing to you a special package on CBN, intervention processes in boosting the Nigerian creative economy through the Creative Industry Financing Initiative. I'll be, wrapping the curtain, drawing the curtains rather. I'll see you all tomorrow, same time on this channel. Just be safe, everyone. Be the best you can be and be the change you want to see. I am Nancy Naji. Bye now.
Like many emerging economies, the potential of the creative economy in Nigeria is yet to be fully harnessed. The raw talent of young minds which can contribute to the country's fortune remain largely untapped. Figures from the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, indicate that the unemployment rate in Nigeria, as at Q2 of 2020, is 27.1% of the adult population, up from the 23.1% recorded in the third quarter of 2018. The underemployment rate increased from 20.1% in Q3 of 2018 to 28.6% in 2020. According to the NBS, the unemployment rate among young people aged between 15 and 34 years was 34.9%, up from 29.7%, while the rate of the underemployment for the same age group rose to 28.2% in 2020, from 25.7% in the Q3 of 2018. A report from the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, says the incidence of unemployment and poverty among youth has risen at an alarming rate, a trend that has resulted in a reversal of fortunes for youth in more advanced economies of Europe, North America, and Japan, and in many emerging countries, especially in Latin America and the Caribbean, Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. These economic realities, according to UNIDO, have now begun to alter expectations of lifestyle and livelihoods, which for the last few decades were considered stable and predictable. Creativity, which is the prime asset for young people, is present in every country on the globe. However, as noted by UNIDO, innovation tends to emerge where the value of creativity is favorably perceived and creative talents are better organized through business and supported by institutions, and where competition amongst these creative minds encourages and ultimately rewards creativity and entrepreneurship. Realizing the nexus between creativity and economic progress, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria